that takes us to our elite discussion topic. I feel that Elite Dangerous has arguably sort of one and a half things that they have that is better than anyone else. The one thing that cannot be questioned they have that is better than anyone else on the market is their galaxy. Now, I think Space Engine has arguably just as good, if not slightly better, galaxy model than Elite Dangerous, except Space Engine is a tech thing. It's not a game per se. It's not, you don't fly a ship and do stuff. You operate a camera and you see the galaxy. And don't get me wrong, it's amazing. I bought it. It's very, very cool. But it's not a game per se. It's a learning tool. It's an educational device. I don't know exactly where you'd put it, but it's not a game. You don't have credits. You don't have lives. You don't shoot at stuff and get blown up in mind. You just see the universe. So Elite Dangerous has the best galaxy model of all of the games that I have ever seen. Now, I feel like they give up that advantage. They give up that head start. They give up that leg up when they don't do anything with it. If they were to use some of the proc gen that they are oh so famous for, that David Braben is repeatedly quoted and touted as the god of proc gen. If they were to use some of that proc gen to basically pull a No Man's Sky and not go quite as far as No Man's Sky does, where it's like everything is everywhere, but like selectively, more realistically, more scientifically, more whatever. If they were to put some creatures on some planets, and if they were to put some more than 144 types of plants on some planets, and if they were to put some weird alien ruins or crashed ship or mission, quest, item, thing, interaction, habitat, you could literally just have, here's some weird fucking drug dealer type, or here's some weird hermit type that packed up his shit into a DBX and jumped 30,000 light years away and is now sort of living somewhere with his little hydroponic farm out in the middle of nowhere. If you were to put what we will call, for the purpose of this discussion, POIs, points of interests, whether it be a special rock that gives off radiation and is valuable, or a special animal that is, a cow with the head of a donkey, or a special tree that has a fruit on it that is worth something, or a special mission, or a special person to just, to go out, or a special weird alien ruin, or if they put something of interest in their amazing galaxy, Elite would have a viable answer to, an abandoned fleet carrier just sitting somewhere, and you have to explore it the same way you do in No Man's Sky with their derelict freighters. And there's loot in there. There's something of value. There's a reason to go. But if you have 420 billion star systems, and if all of them except for the ones in the bubble have fuck all in them, you have squandered your greatest resource. So here's what we're going to do. Audaxius has a thing he wants to talk about. Let's start with Audaxius, then Katie, then Roy, then Tweaked. Everyone, give me your thoughts on the discussion topic.
Yeah, just to start out, I think it's a good point and one that kind of hits close to home in another sensitive way, because there was a talk that was posted online by David Brave, and you guys have referenced it on the show, where he was talking about the magical potential of procedural generation and what you can turn it into above and beyond a series of random numbers. So you know that it means something to him. But what I saw in Odyssey is wherever the pressure came from to flesh out the FPS gameplay, it's not news to anyone. It was at the expense of the other avenues that could have gone. And it sounds like these points of interest, however they would manifest in the game, really is like where exploration would have benefited from. And I saw that my gut feeling is if they had taken the time or the effort to flesh out, as much as they fleshed out combat, to flesh out exploration with these things like POIs that serve end-game purposes for his rewards, but just an enrichment purpose as far as the experience of exploring, I feel people would have been a lot more on the side of Odyssey, because you would have had more buy-in from a greater section of the community, and it would not have been a big technical challenge. They've already displayed that they can do this with the procedural generation of the planet system, the points of interest that you currently find within the bubble. I really think it was just a matter of pressure pushing combat, and given the development cycle, that's all that there remained the time or the man hours for.
Katie?
So I personally think that this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but the size of the galaxy works against them. I don't think it's a positive. I think it's a negative. Just because, so you got, I forget whether it's 100 billion or 400 billion star systems in the galaxy. And after 7 years, it's a fraction of a percent that has been explored. Mm-hmm. If you put random things out there, the odds of actually coming across them they're lottery odds. It's just because the size of the galaxy is too big. It's too much for players of a video game to realistically explore anyway. I don't see it as positive. I think that I agree that Space Engine is fantastic. It's incredible because you can immediately go and see any sorts of wonders you want to see. For a game where travel time and exploration are a factor, there's too much out there for anyone to realistically explore. If you drop these POIs down, you think, okay, we're going to sprinkle them around. The chances of actually coming across them, I think, in a galaxy that large are minuscule.
Let me clarify real quick. My idea was that there should be something, a POI of interest in every system, whether it be a rock that gives off a special radiation, or a tree that has a special fruit, or a base, or an alien ruins, or something. I think there should sort of be a thing to find in every system.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that could work, yeah. I wouldn't have any objections to it. Yeah, I'd be for it. I'd be in favor of it.
Right on. Roy?
Yeah, I agree with what Katie's saying, but I think there's a simpler solution here. What I think back to is, if you look at the practically infinite variety of in Horizons, planet geography and star alignment, creating that in my mind creates. This is why you go on an expedition and you take 2,000 screenshots, right? You keep finding things where just the random interaction of that mountain or this valley and the star or two stars or this moon and the rings, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's practically infinite. And by restricting the flora that we can find to 144 types, I think they've missed a trick here. If you could have darn near infinite variety because of hybridization between different types of biologicals that maybe you could realistically believe could be a hybrid, or have things about them that vary, like the height. Imagine if you're the first person that finds a 50-foot tall example of whatever biological, or they could play with some of those parameters and let it run in the Stellar Forge, And just that variety, I think, would tap into that same drive that pulls explorers like myself to go find the cool thing. But if it's a list of 144 and it's such a sort of pedantic amount of, I mean, it's a really simplistic variation, like red, blue, orange variations of this fungus. Like it's, come on. It's not something that's going to drive someone to go 20,000 light years to go find. But if you knew that it was practically infinitely variable, and it doesn't need to be infinite, it could be, once you go above like 1 million or something, it's like Katie said, you're not going to find them all in your lifetime playing a game anyway. Then that creates the opportunity to go find that super special thing. And it doesn't, I would love to see the POIs be scattered about, and maybe it makes sense to put some of those in more trafficked routes if you ever want them to be found, like somewhere between the bubble and Salome's Reach or Colonia or the cardinal points of the galaxy in terms of directions that people go and try to plant the flag. But that's, I mean, I've had discussions with people offline a lot about what could you do with POI placement, because if there was, the ultimate POI, Raxla, what if it's out there somewhere and the dev who placed it is like anguishing over the fact that no one's found it yet because we've only found 1% of the galaxy? It's that kind of conundrum.
I think
it's easier than that.
I come back to my point though, Roy. I think in real life, as we go and explore as a human species and move on to the next solar system and the next and the next and the next and the next, I foresee us finding at least one, if not 1,000 points of interest in every galaxy. I think, and it doesn't have to be life. It doesn't have to be, there's aliens. It doesn't have to be, there's a fucking McDonald's. It could be just, there's a weird rock that does a thing. Here's a weird planet that's locked in a way that does a thing. Here's a weird something, something of interest. And I think that part of that plays into the idea of expanding the sort of role of scientific play in Elite and giving, like, having a science station and being able to scan more stuff. And maybe there's, rocks that give off whatever. Maybe there's, hey, look at this weird star. It has a weird effect on the planet that's next to it. The star gives off these particles. The particles hit, ionized gases and the whatever. And between the two, it makes a bioluminescence, or it does a thing. Katie, you had a thing from chat?
So yeah, I've been monitoring the YouTube chat, and someone brought up a point about the lack of complexity, and I have to agree with this. So to give an example of what I mean, if there was a POI, I think it would be interesting if there was a POI in every system, as you say, Kai. But someone would have to make these things, the individual kind of elements that make these POIs, and if, as we say, like, for example, with plant species, so I think you mentioned there were 144 of them. If you sprinkle that evenly over 400 billion star systems, they will repeat to an extreme level. They will, by definition, become trivial purely because every, 100th system you come across the same thing. Mm-hmm. I think that in order for a system like that to work, there would need to be an enormous degree of, either an enormous degree of complexity and variation, or these things would need to be region specific. So you would go to a very specific region of the galaxy to see a certain phenomena. And as much as I would love to see FDev do this, based on their track record, I can't see them doing it.
I agree.
Just one final point. To the argument that you go to these places to see a specific vista and a specific view, a specific alignment of stars and planets, and this is just a personal opinion. So take this as you will. But I don't think Odyssey's vistas are impressive enough to warrant that. Again, that's a personal thing. Some people will find them far more impressive, and that's fine. For me personally, simply hunting out the beautiful views, I don't think Odyssey is good enough for that.
Fair enough.
I agree. There should be something in every system, some kind of whether it be a alien ruin or whatever to go down and find. There should be some enemies, since we do have some FPS to interact with. I would go as far as to say, why don't we even have in the bubble? Why don't we even have like proc gen missions where if there's an imperial war going on, something happens, or God, there's so many different ways they could go in that, but we just don't. We don't have any of that kind of stuff in this game. And if there was more things to find out and about, I think you'd see an army of explorers going out to find there. Why don't we? Well, I know why we don't, but we should have freighters or fleet carriers, abandoned ones, to go through, the Adamastor to go through and clear out the Thargoids or whatever's in there and that kind of stuff. It's just, it doesn't feel like it's in the realistic realm of FDev's capabilities at this point.